Perfect. Is my screen flipped for you guys, or is that just me? No? Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for waiting, everybody. Today's class is going to be on color correcting shadow, especially on the face. So this one doesn't really matter what your gender orientation tends to be. This is useful for pretty much any kind of orientation, not gonna lie. But specifically trans femmes tend to find this the most useful. I do have a PowerPoint ready to go just to kind of give you the basics of doing color correction. So let me get this started for you. I apologize in advance. I can't read the comments while I have this uploaded as I only have one monitor, unfortunately. I do have a model for this class as well. Thank you to Reika, who's going to be our model for today's lesson. So one of the most important things for helping you to cover up any kind of shadows on the face, this can be like shadows around the jawline, or it can also be true for hyperpigmentation and the under eyes as well, actually, or even for covering up tattoos, especially if they are black or blue. So the first thing you want to do is ensure that your skin is like smoothly shaved or waxed prior to using these techniques for the best results. Moisturization is going to be key as well. Moisturizing the skin after shaving gives you the best makeup outcomes, and it also gives your skin some TLC as well, which is very important. So the better you take care of your skin, the better the outcome of how your makeup looks is going to turn out. Some ways you can take care of your skin and also help to get the best results include using a toner as a sort of aftershave. Moisturize for your skin type, so if you're more dry, normal, oily, for example. And finally, SPF, very important if you want to prevent premature aging or discoloration as well. Due to the nature of shaving or waxing, you might experience some irritation, especially if you have more sensitive skin. So as a result, if you do have sensitive skin, I actually recommend waiting around 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes a little longer, before applying your makeup. And I tend to do the eyes and eyebrows before the rest of the face. And that's plenty of time to kind of just like shave, do your eyebrows and eye makeup. And then by the time you're done doing all of that, your skin is ready to go for the rest of your face. A couple tips for if you do have sensitive skin. I recommend using your facial cleanser on your wet skin and kind of create a lather. You don't have to use shaving cream per se, but that way you'll get a nice smooth and gentle shave. Shaving in the same direction as your hair growth. You don't want to shave against the grain necessarily if you do have sensitive skin. Also make sure you're rinsing the razor after each pass to make sure that the blades aren't dull, and that way you'll make sure you get an even closer shave as well. Also make sure you rinse your face thoroughly at the end before applying your skincare, just to make sure that your base is nice and smooth. I wanted to touch on the fact that there are also different hair removal preferences, especially for people who are more in the middle of the gender spectrum, or if they're more trans femme, especially when they just don't want facial hair. Although I do have a couple of like trans masc friends who also don't like facial hair as well. But some methods of removing facial hair that I didn't mention that are not waxing, or excuse me, or shaving, include waxing. This is going to be temporary and removes hair at the root, causing it to take a little bit longer to grow back than shaving does, but it's not permanent. You'll see a lot of folks do laser as well. This is faster than electrolysis, is what I'm going to mention next. It can give permanent results, but does take a couple of sessions. It tends to only work best for darker hair on fair to medium skin tones. I would say that this method isn't always friendly for folks who have melanin, unfortunately. It can take care of large areas quickly. That's why a lot of people tend to use it over the body as well. And it does take an average of 6 to 8 treatments, sometimes more. My partner took her about, I think 12 to 20 sessions to actually get hers completely gone. But it doesn't grow back anymore. So she has like permanent removal as a result. Electrolysis is a little bit more intense. That's going to permanently remove your hair by destroying each hair at the follicle individually. This one is probably the best overall all around for people who have sensitive skin, darker skin tones, light to medium hair color. Unfortunately, laser tends to work well only for people who have fair skin and dark hair. So this is going to be a little bit better. This is going to be permanent, and it can take an average of 8 to 12 sessions for best results on average. Again, results do kind of vary on that. But it is a little bit more successful at permanent removal. Some folks may want to have their facial hair permanently removed and others may not, especially if you like to present differently in different circumstances. Personally, that's how I am too. That's why I just shave. I wanted to bring attention to these as options simply in case it's something that might interest some of the people in our community, just as options. Education is key. So part of the reason finding a model for the session was actually a little bit difficult for me was because of the fact that most of the trans femme folks in my life have already had laser electrolysis, and many of them actually recommend it if you do find it to be a point of dysphoria. The only downside, though, is it can be a bit expensive and take several sessions to achieve the desired results, which is why I'm also doing this class too for folks who do shave like I do. Unfortunately, my facial hair just isn't dark enough to be shown on camera. This is also why I think it's important to keep beauty equitable and helping folks from any background or situation feel comfortable in your own skin. Back to skincare. So, some of the best ingredients in toners and moisturizers for calming inflammation or irritation post-shaver wax, especially if you have sensitive skin, include aloe vera, witch hazel, tea tree oil, salicylic acid, and vitamin E. I will say, though, that salicylic acid I probably wouldn't recommend if you have drier skin, though, because it can kind of exacerbate dryness if you do have a drier skin type. But if you have normal or oily skin, I would recommend it. Make sure, though, that especially if you have sensitive skin, you stay away from products with added fragrances and alcohol, especially if you tend to have dry or acne-prone skin as well. Getting into color correcting, you'll see on the little graph I have here a bunch of different ways to color correct, and I know that can be super intimidating, so I'm going to make it super simple. So, we're only really going to touch on the peach and orange ones. So, peach is going to be more for if you have a fairer skin tone or lighter colored facial hair. This also, again, works for depending on the shadow that you have for like your under eyes or hyperpigmentation as well. Orange is going to be better if the hair follicles that you see under the skin come through a little bit darker, or if you have more melanin in your skin as well. So deeper complexion, stick with orange. Peach for if you're fair. Super easy. Couple of tips. If the color that comes through from your hair roots is more on the green end of the spectrum, tend to use a peach corrector. If the color that comes through from your hair roots tends to be more of a bluish tone, or more of a blackish tone even, use the orange corrector. Now what you're going to want to do, and this is what we're going to do on the demo as well, is apply the corrector before your foundation and concealer, but after you've done your moisturizer, your toner, moisturizer, and SPF. You can also do a primer beforehand as well, especially if you have texture on the skin. And that's going to fill in any like pores or fine lines and just make the base a lot smoother and also a little bit more long lasting to where you don't have to use as much product in those areas as well. You're only going to want to apply the corrector to areas that are a different color than your base skin tone. So you don't need to apply this everywhere, just only apply it on the areas that have the discoloration that you're wanting to correct. Another tip that I recommend is after you've applied the corrector to these areas, lightly press a setting powder. It doesn't matter what kind of setting powder, as long as it's either loose or pressed, like it doesn't matter. As long as you have a bit of a powder and like a big fluffy brush. So just apply that over the corrector after you've applied it. And basically that makes sure that the orangey tone doesn't bleed into your foundation or concealer and turn it kind of peachy or orangey once you actually get to applying your foundation. So it'll make sure it doesn't mix in with it and leave you looking like your lower half of your face is more orangey. That is a huge thing that I see a lot of beginners make the mistake of doing. They just do the corrector and then go straight in with their foundation or concealer. So to prevent that from happening, this is a good this is a method I use quite frequently, and I find that it's pretty foolproof. If you have darker under eyes, you can actually, in the same step, use the same color corrector shade you used for your facial shadows with the same technique as the previous slide I just mentioned to make them seem less dark. Again, this can be used also for black or blue tattoos as well. Again, just make sure that you're only putting the orange or peachy tone on the area that is dark and not on the actual like natural skin tone. Another thing about the translucent powder, um, you can set the color corrector with the powder, but then when you go in with the concealer, go with a blotting or dabbing motion and not in like circular, like aggressive motions like you normally would to apply like foundation or concealer into your skin with if you use a brush. I prefer a sponge for this specifically because it doing like little dabbing motions, I find that it doesn't disturb the corrector layer beneath it as easily, and that prevents you from looking as orange too. Once you've done the corrector, powder, then concealer, you can apply foundation to the rest of your face. I also prefer to do that with a sponge to the areas I didn't color correct, just to make sure I also make sure it looks very seamless. Make sure to set everything at the end with a powder again, unless you're using more cream products like liquid blush or like a cream contour stick or like a liquid highlighter, in which case you would just set your whole face with powder once you're done with those. So that is it for our slideshow. Any questions before I move on? Feel free to share your own experiences in the chat as well, by the way. Oh, IPL, yeah, I would say it would kind of go in between plucking and laser. If you want, I can pull that graph back up because I think it actually mentioned it. Like an epilator. No, it doesn't. But yeah, I would put it kind of in between there. Erica, did you want to talk about what you do? No? Okay. All right. You want to take a seat? It's my turn. Yeah. All right. This is Reika, everybody. So we've already done some fun disco punk kind of eyeshadow for her work tonight. So we've done brows and eyeshadow. We are at the twins today a little bit. I did kind of the same makeup. Don't judge me though. This is yesterday's makeup. I'm a bad teacher. Don't listen to me. Don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. Exactly. And it's actually black light reactive too. So when she goes to work tonight under the black lights, it's going to be glowing too. So it'll be really fun. Yeah, for a lot of folks, especially if you're um, you find you don't really have too much discoloration, or if you have like a paler facial hair, a lot of times you can just get away with doing concealer. Less is always more. So if you can get away with it, I say go for it. All right. Everyone can see okay? All right. So we have already done a little bit of a toner. So this toner has ceramides in it, so it's super hydrating. Reika kind of has a little bit drier skin. And we've also used a vitamin C cream that's super rich and hydrating as well over the whole face. That's why she is glowing. um, so let me put some gloves on real fast. Oh, good. Glad that worked for you. All right.
Ready to frisk me?
This is
Oh, the gloves are for
yours.
something else.
So this is hers. So let's make sure that we only apply it to the areas that need it. So notice I'm not covering over here where she doesn't have any. And I tend to bring it down the neck just a little bit too, because a lot of us tend to actually get them like right underneath the jawline. Actually, I'll do a tiny bit just under your eyes too. Sorry, I realize it's a little hard to see when I do this side. And I'm just pressing it into the skin to where it's not too heavy, where it looks like skin. So notice the motion, the technique that I'm using is just dabbing it. Actually, I'll zoom in just a tiny bit. And just a tiny bit more. Less is more when it comes to makeup typically. So I do thin layers of it, just because we want our skin to look and feel like skin still. So now that I have that base layer down, I'm going to use a loose setting powder with a big fluffy brush. And I'm only going to press it into those areas. I'm not going to swirl it. I don't want to disturb that layer. I want to press it into the skin to where it stays exactly where I placed it. How does it feel?
Like a bunny's butt rubbing against
Yeah,
it.
yeah, the brush is really soft. Since Reika is pretty fair, the concealer corrector I'm using is more in this range. But if she had darker hair or had a darker complexion, I would have used this color instead.
You say I'm the fairest of them all.
You were very
I
much
know,
the fairest of them all.
terrible. Yeah.
Now, next, I have concealer. And this is not hers, so I'm just using gloves to keep it hygienic. And now that this powder layer has had a tiny bit of time to set, I can go right over it and dab into the skin with the concealer. And that way it's not going to look super orange. And again, we're bringing that down the neck as well. You don't have to worry about applying the concealer as precisely, by the way, just because it's going to be more accurate to her skin tone. Oh yeah, so the class is going to be on color correction for specifically covering like shadow or dark under eye circles. So we've already gone in and done an orangey color corrector on her skin that's already been moisturized and ready to go, already shaved and everything. Did a light layer of translucent powder to make sure that the orange doesn't go and bleed into her makeup throughout the day. Because a lot of times, especially as you're sweating and moving around, even though you might have done your concealer or foundation over the orange and you feel like it didn't blend, as your skin kind of warms up to it, it might bleed into the foundation. So we've already banished a lot of that bluish green tone away. Sorry, I can't see that side as well. Yes, there are recordings of all of our previous classes. They're on the VR Chat Trans Academy YouTube page. Look up for me. Go a little higher for me. Now, when I do the eye area, because it's a moving part of the face, tends to crease a bit. So I like to go in right away, one side at a time, with a bit of that translucent setting powder. Look up for me. And then gently press that into the skin. I'm not baking it, I'm not doing anything super complicated, just melting, kind of marrying them together. Look straight for me. So you can already see how much cleaner this side looks already. Let's turn for this side. Perfect. Just a tiny bit more. And I'm using just a tiny little brush to get into this area specifically because I've done a very intricate eye makeup look and I'm trying to keep them symmetrical. And again, a little bit of powder. So now that we've done the concealer part, a lot of the discoloration has kind of disappeared. And now we can go over everything with a foundation. Swatch this real fast. Well, this way through. I am doing this just a little bit heavier on camera just to where it comes across a little bit better than I would if I were doing like a natural makeup vibe. But we work in entertainment, so it's okay if it's a little more dramatic anyway. Go like this. And again, I'm still doing that patting motion. Turn it this way. Nice. Oops, some of that cotton pad. And my love will not let me. There we go. Raise your eyebrows. Perfect. Her skin already looks pretty healthy now, not as much discoloration. Relax your eyebrows. Go like this again. So very meticulously blended everything. And then we're going to set all of this with a translucent powder since I'm not doing any cream products. And this is going to make the skin look really soft and matte. Matte is just a fancier way of saying like it doesn't have any shine to it. Relax right up. If you guys have any questions too, feel free to ask them. I am checking to see just in case while I'm doing this. How do you budget for this stuff? Actually, a lot of the products I've used on her are drugstore brands. Even the fake eyelashes are drugstore, actually. The only thing that I tend to really splurge on is brushes.
As we've talked about, just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's the best.
Exactly. Like NYX is a great brand for dupes of like high-end MAC products, for example. How does it feel? Does it feel heavy?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. We basically used a tinted moisturizer and I mixed it with a little bit of a foundation to where it has SPF in it for tonight. Yes, those are the steps. So I did, well, obviously I moisturize first, then corrector, powder just the corrector areas, and do concealer, foundation, and then powder over everything again. Actually, the lifespan of products will actually tell you if it'll focus. It'll tell you on the packaging. So this one says for 12 months. So this one is good for a year. It's kind of like the best buy date on like produce. Oh, she wants to know what your profession is. Are you comfortable?
Profession?
Yeah.
Of course. I work for a performing company, not gonna say what, but I've performed before. Circus, stage manager, and usher. I did everything in entertainment.
Oh, yes, that is once the product is opened. And typically I would say like dry powders you can keep for about 2 years, but liquid products I wouldn't use after a year. Now her face is a little bit more of a longer shape than mine, so I'm not going to contour her face the same way that I would contour mine. Normally I would start at the top of the ear going down to the edge of the mouth, but we're going to go slightly lower than that just to make her face proportions a little bit rounder. It's also going to add a little bit of warmth to the skin too, since we are pale girls. Pale girls.
Pale ghouls?
Ghouls.
I prefer ghoul.
Ghouls.
Now my ex-girlfriend, now she was pale.
I always tell people I'm the palest Mexican you'll ever meet. Yes, you do tend to use up the products a lot more quickly the more you're active with it. Um, I would say I tend not to wear makeup on my days off. I tend to be chill about it. Might do a tinted moisturizer and eyebrows, and that's about it. But when you're trying to do like a full face for work and things like that, or going out and you want to make sure that you're passing for your own safety, especially, um, I do recommend investing in a really good concealer. The one that I used on her, ironically, we're the same shade in concealer, is the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in the shade Light for us, obviously. But it's very, very full coverage. A lot of folks don't even need to use color corrector if they just use this. And I find that even though it is just a little tube of concealer, it actually lasts me about a year, maybe even 2 years, but I wouldn't recommend using it beyond that. Um, I literally have my old tube right next to us, and it still has a little bit of life in it, honestly. But that I do recommend specifically that concealer, not for all skin types. If you tend to be a little bit too dry, I wouldn't recommend it, but they do have a creamy version of it that I do like for drier skin. And we're gonna warm up the forehead a little bit too. Do you want to get your hair for me? Just so I don't mess it up. And this is gonna round her facial proportions out a little bit. So this area here is gonna seem more like that. So notice how that side of her forehead is taking more of a shape like that.
Sorry, I have to be goofy.
Ministry of Silly Walks. I'm dating myself by saying.
I appreciate it though.
Okay. You might actually contour your jaw this time just a little bit.
Dang.
Tiny, tiny bit. Be careful when you're contouring the jawline though, when you do have your color corrector kind of happening here though. Just because if you put orange back in this area again, and a lot of these tend to be more orangey, and kind of bring that back out again. We don't want that. And then I'm going to do a tiny bit right here on your chin just to make your chin seem a little smaller too. You do the other side.
I had to change it up a little bit.
Sorry if it's not focusing. There we go.
I need you to focus.
Also, when you're doing the jawline, especially if you do tend to worry or be a little bit self-conscious about like the shadow in general, don't over blend it, especially down the neck, because it can actually give you the effect that it looks like you had the wrong color match, because your neck will start to look orange and your face will look a little bright.
Well, actually,
I have this really pretty green color I'm gonna apply. We don't support Jeffree Star though because he's a transphobe and just in general not a good person. But I got this for free, unfortunately. So I am going to use it though, just to complement the rest of the face with this green color.
since it's a little quiet, last week I went out on a date with this weather girl. We
Mhm.
talked up a storm.
That's a good one.
Yeah, terrible. I know.
Do you have a lot of dad jokes?
Unfortunately,
What's another one?
um, I went to the record store the other day and I asked if they had 50 Cent, and they threw me out for panhandling.
What was the one you told me the other day?
Um, I told my dad that I wanted to learn how to play music, so he went out, bought me a blunt instrument, handed it to me, and said, "Here, knock yourself out."
That was it, yeah. I do agree. Dad jokes are the best. They're underappreciated. If you'll notice, by the way, what I've done is I did the contour first, then the highlighter, and now I'm doing the blush. And that's because when I'm doing the blush, sorry, it's going in between those two layers. So it's going to go right in here. And by applying it, especially with a fluffy brush like this, it kind of marries them all together and blends them to where it doesn't look like Neapolitan ice cream. I do agree. Neapolitan ice cream is actually really good. So it's slightly too much blush on this side. So if you ever over apply anything, you can just take a foundation powder with that same fluffy brush you normally use for translucent powder and just gently press that on the skin and it'll make it a lot more diffused.
Like you're getting in the way again. It has a mind of its own.
You'd be like that
Yeah.
sometimes. I think I want to do slightly more highlighter just to amp it up for tonight. And so we've pulled her forehead down a little bit by doing a contour here and filled her cheekbones in a little bit more to make them a little bit more rounder and cutesy. Just through the magic of contouring and blush. And all I needed to do instead of contouring way up here, that would kind of make her look a little bit gaunt. So we put it down here, more in this area instead. Oh yeah, that's an interesting concept, especially. It's funny how we have so many gendered concepts for different kind of joking mechanisms and or just mansplaining in general. I feel like that kind of just explains like a patriarchal take on how things tend to be though for us in general. Not your take, the like mansplaining
Mhm.
concept, just to clarify.
Mhm.
We're also going to be doing a setting spray, and we're going to do this all over the face. And it's going to help to press all of that into the skin and also make it long wearing too. Close your eyes. We're doing a generous amount just because she's going out tonight. I agree. Establish dominance by being the mom joke maker.
Mhm.
Where did I put the lipstick? Can't see.
I was gonna say I would read, but I don't have my glasses on, so you're
We're
shot
both
out of luck on that
blind.
one. You have no excuse. You have the glasses on.
I agree. I think whoever the gender of the person making the jokes is would make it whether it's a dad or mom joke. Because speaking from experience, a lot of moms I know make a lot of corny jokes just as much as the stereotype of men doing it. Oh, you have nice lobes. Let's see. Okay. No, you're not being disruptive. It gives us something to talk about while I do the rest of her face.
Exactly. It's too silent.
I don't like the sound of silence. It leaves me with my thoughts. Oh no. Actually, let's swing you facing me. There we go. Sorry, I realize you can't really see how I'm doing this, but it's the only way I can make it symmetrical for her, unfortunately. Thank you. So all I've done is I've just overlined her lips in just the center. And that's specifically because we want to shorten the distance between the end of the upper lip and the nose to be a little bit more feminizing. And it'll make her features a little bit more harmonious. Yeah, good luck getting that out of your head now.
Mhm.
We've been fighting the urge to say do it the entire time we've been doing makeup today.
Do it.
Do it.
Screw it. Do it. Could always do it in Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice.
Do it.
Do it. Do it now.
That's actually really good, honestly. Open. Yep. Close. Actually, place. I don't know about the stream freezing and unloading on you without rejoining the call. If you rejoin the call, it should still be okay. But if you have any issues, we are recording the stream too, so you should be able to see it again once we finally upload the stream of this as well. Close. How are we looking?
Amazing.
Get a little closer up there. Actually, this you were the last person to use this. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
this. So if you want to just plop that on for me real fast.
Mirror. What is that from Batman? The mirror.
Mirror.
And then I probably can't do his laugh. Mm. He had some weird laugh. I can't remember it. It's been a while since I've seen that movie.
It has been a minute for me too. All right. So we have our full face now. So I started with the eyebrows and eyes, moisturized the face very thoroughly, made sure everything was shaped well as well. And then we went in with a color corrector just in the area where you see a little bit of bluish or greenish tones, and then also under the under eyes as well. And then after that, we set it with powder just to make sure it wouldn't bleed into the cosmetics that I apply afterwards. So concealer and foundation. Um, then after that, we went in with concealer over the areas that we color corrected. Then we did foundation on everything else and blended it into the concealer and then set that with powder. And then we went on and did the rest of her face, just doing the like blush, contour, highlight, and then lipstick. And that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions? Well, maybe you're gremlin. I'll be down here.
Just look at you all.
Hello there. What do you think it all costs today? I could easily do this in a more budget-friendly way with very similar results. NYX makes really cute eyeshadow palettes that are not very expensive. You can get some of them for like $12. Same with the brand Juvia's Place. They make some really nice colorful shadows that are still in drugstore pricing. Um, you could also get a good concealer from like e.l.f. They also have a really good foundation that is like a tinted moisturizer that you could get for probably like $6 or so. I think they changed the price so it might be a little bit higher now. It might be closer to $12. Um, you could also do cheap lipstick is fine. I use a liquid lipstick just because she needs it to stay on all night. But you could use like a cream lipstick, and you could even use the technique I did for her too. I used a brush to apply it for hygienic purposes since I have other models and clients that I might use this lip color on and I want to keep it hygienic. But you can do that with your own personal stash as well instead of just using the applicator. And that way you'll get a really precise line like she has right now. Liquid does stay on for longer and it tends to be more food proof unless you eat something really oily like pizza, for example. Um, you can find really cute little like contour palettes that are not as expensive as well. Um, if you have like an Ulta Beauty, just stay on the like drugstore side and you can find a lot of affordable things. Sometimes they'll even have promotions that don't work on like the prestige items, which are like high end stuff, but they do work on the lower end stuff. They'll have like $3 off coupons and your points you can use, things like that over time. Um, the color corrector I bought for her is from Morphe and it's just a peach color corrector. And that cost me like $6. The eyeliner I used on her today is actually a drugstore eyeliner as well. It's from NYX. It's the Epic Ink eyeliner. Um, and I used that to do like the graphic wing that we have and the disconnected downside wing that we have as well. And I buy that one all the time. It lasts a very long time. I use it like literally every day, so that's why I have to buy it so much. But for a normal person who's doing normal eyeliner instead of like crazy eyeliner like I like to do, it should last you a very long time. So full face could probably get drugstore version for about 100, probably about 100, maybe a little bit more if you need to worry about tax. And it also depends on what region you're in as well.
And at least that, even though it's 100, it'll go a long
It'll
way.
go a very long way, yeah. And you don't have to buy it all at once too. You can just buy little things here and there. Whereas like a full face of high end would probably cost around $400 to $500. Um, I do have a lot of prestige items, but I do find that I tend to buy specifically drugstore brands because they've really stepped up their game over the years and they don't have as much of a bad rep as they used to.
Since you're reading questions, would you like to see?
No,
That
it's
way you
okay.
don't have to hide back
I
there.
want them to look at your beautiful face.
Mm.
Any other questions? But yeah, drugstore probably around 100, like estimating.
Mm.
And then if you were to do like a full face of like prestige high end, it'd probably be like 400 to 500. Was there any other questions? It doesn't have to be about what we did today. It can be about anything, honestly. Well, damn. I didn't know you could do that with your elbows.
Oh, I could do many things.
How do you get this in Trans Academy? How did Trans Academy start? Trans Academy was actually founded by Tizzy. Um, I don't want to tell her story for her, but you can always reach out to her and ask her to tell you as well. She started it because she's a huge fan of the VR community and wanted to create a community for us, like queer folks in general, and like a safe space for us to kind of just all be together. And now we have almost like 19,000 members. And it is now a nonprofit as well. So we have the Discord, the group hangouts that we do in VR chat, and then we do classes. I do makeup classes for you, and then there's some other ones that do like computer classes and stuff like that, and voice training as well. You'll also notice we have a tab for notices, and it lets you know what events are going on as well. Yeah, it did start as a small group of friends. I actually did a class specifically on matching foundation. It was the class, two classes before this one, so class number 4. And I teach you how to color match yourself without having to go into a store in that one as well. TLDR, you can use online shopping, and a lot of places have a really good return policy to where you can try a couple different shades and then return the ones that do not match you without having to worry about losing money that way. Um, you can also get free samples as well, especially if you order like an eyeliner or something online, something you know you don't have to worry about your shade, but you want to try a foundation. They'll usually have little sample sets, especially on Sephora or Ulta websites.
And free is always good.
Free is always good. For me, how I got learning to teach at Trans Academy is my girlfriend is best friends with Tizzy, and I was like, "Hey, if you need a makeup artist for Trans Academy, let me know." And she's like, "Yeah, that sounds good. We'll start doing classes." I do encourage you to definitely like build and foster community for us, especially with like how dark times have been. Community definitely helps a lot of us stay sane, especially being with our folks, our chosen family. So yeah, I would encourage you to reach out to her and she'd probably be able to give you some really good advice. If your under eye tends to be a darker purple color, you could actually go for the darker orange color if you wanted to, if it's significantly darker. Just don't make sure you don't apply the orange outside of the area that is dark. And then set it with powder and then go over it with your concealer and just blot it on top to where it doesn't disturb the product underneath. Oh, contour. So, contour specifically discusses or encompasses using a slightly darker shade than your skin tone to add a shadow, a natural looking shadow to the face in order to add dimension or to change your facial features. It's kind of like free FFS. If you know what you're doing and you can practice it and change your face shape how you want to. Um, like what I did for her is I shortened her forehead by contouring the outer edges. And then I made her cheekbones look more full by doing her contour lower than her actual cheekbones and adding the blush up higher and blending it into her middle face. And then I also shortened her jawline and rounded it out a little bit to what wasn't as sharp. And also shortened her chin just a tiny bit as well.
A lot of shortening.
Yes. Actually, can you pass me that naked palette? Yeah. So a lot of times you'll see palettes like this. Obviously, this is very well loved.
Mm.
I tend not to use this one because for fairer folks like us, it can turn a little bit orange. So I go for the more cool tone shade because it's going to look a little bit more natural and it's not going to turn you orange. And then you could use a powder highlighter, and then this is also a powder highlighter as well. A lot of places also make like cream versions as well. Notice how it's more of a cool brown and not a warm brown because you don't want it to be too orangey on the skin because shadows tend to be more cool toned in real life. So it's a little bit more convincing. I'm not an expert on the legality of doing that specifically, but yeah, there's a lot of us who definitely would want to help out with something like that, especially given the nature of like the political climate in a lot of different countries right now. I can understand that being something super helpful. I am unfortunately not the person to ask in that regard, but I support you fully. Um, I like that question though. I have very heavy eye bags. Ooh, so for eye bags, are they specifically like puffier? Okay, so we're trying to make them less puffy. So if you use a concealer that is a little bit too bright for your under eye area, that might draw attention to the puffiness of your under eye area. So I would recommend using a concealer that is closer to your skin tone and sometimes even slightly darker than your skin tone to kind of use light and shadow. So if something's lighter, it's going to bring it forward. If something's darker, it's going to push it backwards. That's how we do contouring. So the contouring by adding the darker there, that's pushing that forward. We're sculpting with products. They go into your face instead of out. So if you have the reverse problem, you can use a lighter concealer to pull things forward just in that area. Don't overdo it by going down too low, because sometimes that can accentuate the crease here from your orbital bone. So we don't want that. So only apply the lighter area right under your eyes. So like for her, I've done a conceal. I did the color corrector to hide the bag, and then underneath. Sorry, let's change the lighting a little bit. And then underneath, I used a concealer that was pretty much exactly her skin tone, to where it wouldn't pull that forward too much or draw too much attention to it. But if I wanted to bring that area forward, I would have used a lighter color. I hope that answered your question. I know that was a little bit on both sides there, like the dramatics of pushing it forward or pulling it back, but it depends on each person. So if your eyes are puffy and they're extending outwards, use a darker shade. And if they are still, you feel like they're puffy, but they're receding more into your face, use a brighter shade. I hope that makes sense. How can you tell if your shadows are more green or blue? A lot of times it might actually help to hold a color next to your face. So, like if I hold, obviously I've already covered it up, but if I hold the blue next to it, does it seem more greener than that? Or if I hold the green next to it, does it seem bluer than that? A lot of times you can just use clothing, for example. You can also look at your veins sometimes too, and you see it's a little easier to tell on your veins whether something looks a little bit more blue or green, and then use that as a comparison to see on your facial as well. Oops. There we go. Was there any other questions?
It,
She said no.
yeah, not having it.
Sorry about that. Camera says she's tired.
I think it's just finally tired of seeing my face, so it's just,
Rude.
I could
Rude.
self burn.
That doesn't mean you should. Although I am also guilty of self-depreciating humor as well.
Have Have I ever told you the Halloween trick or treating?
No. Oh, there she goes again.
Oh, and of course, yeah.
I'll switch it to the other camera.
One yes. The Halloween one. So this is how I know I'm ugly, and don't tell me
Me,
otherwise. This
you're
this
so
this
beautiful
this is
today.
this is how I know I'm ugly. Don't tell me otherwise. So during Halloween, when trick or treating's going on, and the kids come up to the door and I open it, they're the ones who give me the candy.
Oh, I mean, kind of a win though.
It is, but it also goes to show I'm pretty fucking scary.
Mean. No,
I know,
you're
I know,
gorgeous.
I know I am. But I could find the humor in self burn jokes.
As long as you know you're still gorgeous.
Oh, I do.
Good. Types of hair removal diagram and what do the colors mean? That hair diagram is actually just a diagram that I found to um, indicate the different types of hair removal so that people know that there are different options than just shaving if they were interested in pursuing that. So this one tells you 1 to 3 days for shaving before the hair grows back. Like hair removal creams, 3 to 7 days, waxing 2 to 4 weeks, epilator 2 to 4 weeks, plucking 2 to 4 weeks, laser usually permanent, and electrolysis usually permanent. But that was from the PowerPoint I did at the beginning of the class. I like to start with a PowerPoint just to kind of detail the step by step. So when I actually go to doing the actual process, you can be like, oh, okay, cool. That's what you're about. She was talking. Just a picture of which hazel is just really good for after shaving as well. An epilator essentially is plucking, yeah. It's more of a device and it does it really quickly for you because plucking yourself can be very tedious and time consuming.
Sounds naughty. Plucking is that.
Plucking.
I love to get plucked.
These are also options for body hair and your eyebrows as well, too. Personally, I shape my eyebrows usually waxing, and then ever since I got my eyebrows waxed, I've just maintained them by either using like a little dermaplaning razor to shave off the ends a little bit, um, or just tweezing the ones that kind of grow back. It's an easy way to maintain it for super cheap. Because we are not out and made of money.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's a life hack for cheap, perfect brows. Get them done professionally one time and then maintain them. Oh, it looks good with the glasses. Sorry, my camera decided she did not want to film anymore. I would show you Reika with her glasses on. Phone camera for glasses. Let's see. Can I make her work?
Been on for. Oh, Jesus! It's stuck on.
Sorry.
Oof.
Sorry. The people want to see you with glasses. I do think epilators are a bit more damaging. I usually don't recommend them. They're kind of a hassle, and I feel like if you're gonna get something like that, you may as well go through doing something like laser or um Electrolysis, that's gonna be for sure permanent and a little bit it might be painful at first, but it does work long term. But that's just based off of, what I've heard from a lot of folks who have done or tried epilators and instead have done laser and electrolysis as part of their gender affirming care. I'll have to take a picture of her makeup in a blue light so you guys can
Oh
see,
yeah, that
it glowing too. Yeah, you can try it, give it a hand. It works for some people, sometimes it doesn't work for other people. It's just a little bit of a learning curve trying to learn how to use it the first time. Alright, I have time for one more question. Ooh, I have a couple people in mind who might be able to help with hair lessons, actually. I personally do not. My specialty is in cosmetics and makeup application, especially for gender affirming care. That tends to be what I focus on primarily. Although we might be recruiting somebody potentially for that if there is enough a demand for it. Those are good tips, honestly. Yeah, I can do some research on that as well. But I'll reach out to someone who's actually licensed for hair specifically, and see if we're able to maybe collab or anything like that. She can maybe use my setup. Oh yeah, I know all about the curly hair struggle, especially from my partner. Actually, both of my partners. All right, we're gonna have to end the stream there for length purposes, though. I will accept. I see that D is still typing, so I'll leave it after that. Yeah, I'll definitely move that up the pipeline for you and let you know in the cosmetics makeup with Sarah classes tab if we're making any progress on that. But yeah, I think that would fulfill definitely a need for a lot of us because hair is difficult. I didn't even try doing my hair today. Oh, thank you, Wendy. Yeah, also, if you ever try doing makeup and things like that, feel free to post them in the Makeup with Sarah chat. I love seeing all of your beautiful faces and your progress, and I love seeing those light bulb moments go off and being like, yes, I can do this. Always very fulfilling. Or if you have any random questions, I always lurk there. I am busy a lot of the time, so I might not respond right away, but I do like seeing them there. And again, we are recording this class, so it will be going on our YouTube page so that if you missed anything or you had any freezing issues or you weren't able to watch the full class, you're able to catch up on that as well. And all of our previous classes are also on there. First one was feminizing makeup, second one was masculinizing makeup, third one was on, I think, foundation, fourth one was on eyeliner. Oh, wait, no, eyeshadow was up there too. But yeah, we've done several classes so far. All right, everyone. That's all the time we have for today, but I appreciate everyone who tuned in.